The Soul of the Runes, a very adequate name for a monster strong enough to tear down entire citadels to build its own nest. Ahtal-Ka is the final boss of Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, a mysterious foe that will only show its true form at the very end of the game. But before we delve into it, I'd like to give some context about how Ahtal-Ka is introduced. As you progress through G rank, you are assigned to repel Lao Shanlong from the fortress near Castle Shrade. Lao Shanlong is an old colossal dragon that roams the land periodically, destroying everything in its path with its bulk whenever it leaves its den. Lao will usually stay dormant and awake if something invades its territory. There are very few creatures capable of menacing a dragon of this scale, and having it on the move is never a good sign. After your return, you learn about the attack of an unknown monster in the same region, akin to a living fortress that dismantled the whole bastion and stole the walls for itself, vanishing out of thin air without explanation. Shortly after, the guild tracks the beast to the Forlorn Citadel, the arena where the player discovers Ahtal-Ka. When you first meet her, however, there is no giant monster to be seen, only a small insectoid creature in a desolated battlefield. Don't be fooled though, what she lacks in size, Ahtal-Ka makes up for it in intelligence. Ahtal-Ka resembles a praying mantis with sharp front claws that she uses to lash at her enemies and manipulate incredibly tensile strands of silk that she pulls with her tail. In the Ahtal-Ka species, the males are not seen in the game. The color of the female is actually closer to copper. They only acquire a vibrant golden carapace after consuming the males. The lustrous patterns and wing-like protrusion on her limbs give her a regal appearance, very comparable to the depictions of scarabs in ancient Egypt. You can tell her Egyptian inspirations from the very first notes of her music. Sound plays a fundamental role in how we appreciate any piece of media, and I will never give enough praise to the musical compositions of Monster Hunter. The two themes of Ahtal-Ka, or three I should say, are absolutely fantastic. When Ahtal-Ka fights by herself, the music mimics how quick and nimble she is with an energetic pace that builds up tension for the upcoming phase. Once you deal enough damage to her, she will walk to the middle of the arena and take out of the sand a massive contraption of rock and metal in the shape of a quadrupedal beast. Her health is locked during the casting animation, since this brief transition is essentially a playable cutscene. Ahtal-Ka will then fly into the belly of the beast to control it like a mech. She will be impervious to damage as long as she is inside, casting long strands of silk to immobilize you and stomping the ground with her mechanical limbs to cause gigantic earthquakes. If you still had any doubt about the reason why a mere bug scared off one of the largest monsters in the franchise, this thing easily outclasses Lao Shanlong in height. Once you fully grasp the sheer scale of Ahtal-Ka's creation, you come to realize that, once again, Lao was actually running away from an even greater threat. It is said that Ahtal-Ka used to gather only natural materials in the past for her nest, but found more interest in man-made components as human technology developed. She will steal anything of use, and you can plunder some of her treasures during the fight by mining some spots on her nest or collecting her drops, which will give you charms, armor spheres, ancient shards, eggs, crystals, or face stones and orbs to craft decorations. The version of her nest, or Neset, that we fight in the game is also incomplete, which would explain why its weak points are still exposed. The beauty of this second phase is that you immediately understand what needs to be done. It is fairly common to have a visual indication of which part should be the target of the player, and it's even more important in Monster Hunter, where monsters can grow to such proportions that they sometimes don't even fit the whole screen. For Darmeralis, for example, the giant weak spots are the cores that control the flow of molten lava through its body, which is a nice excuse to make them so bright. For Ahtal-Ka, her nest is an amalgam of scraps and stones tethered together, so the unprotected parts leave her glowing strands of silk vulnerable to cuts. If one of the legs are weakened, it will sink in the ground to allow the player to climb onto it, and look for the other knots that hold the machinery intact. Once you break them, the giant will fall flat on the ground, and you will finally get access to the throne room, where Ahtal-Ka is hidden in a cocoon. The music changes to a much slower and imposing atmosphere to accompany the torturous climb of the player. Ahtal-Ka has 5 phases in total, which might sound like a lot, but really isn't in practice. The danger of siege fights, or any encounter segmented in phases for that matter, is to find the right balance between the action and the spectacle to prevent it from being uninteresting or repetitive. Ahtal-Ka is one of the better examples of this in my opinion, and keeps the player engaged the whole time through. During the first 4 phases, the fight will alternate between Ahtal-Ka herself and her giant mech. The interesting thing about this process is that even though you have to topple the giant twice, the second time plays a bit differently. At this point you will have to cut deeper into the structure. There are 2 paths on each side of the main body that will lead you to the center, both of which are obstructed, meaning that it's best to stay on the same path and focus on the same leg. Once her mech sustained too much damage, Ahtal-Ka will no longer be able to use it again, and is pitted against you on her own one last time. The anthem of the series resonates, and the end is closing in. Ahtal-Ka will use everything at her disposal, pulling out enormous dragonators and hurling them at you at full force. I find it hilarious how the one weapon designed to slay elder dragons, probably the most iconic in the series, is used against the player this time around. Not only that, but Ahtal-Ka combines the most advanced form of human technology with a simple, giant wheel. Quite ironic. The wheel, or the imagery of a circle in general, embodies the idea of rebirth or cyclic repetition in many cultures, and the fact that Ahtal-Ka uses it on her final moments hits even harder as she represents the end of a chapter in the Monster Hunter franchise. Generations Ultimate is the culmination of old-school Monster Hunter, an anniversary title celebrating over a decade of incredible games. I would have been very curious to see how a monster like Ahtal-Ka would have been implemented in Rise, how she would interfere with the player's warrior bug abilities for example. But considering what she is to the series, I wouldn't mind if Ahtal-Ka stayed in Generations Ultimate. The beauty of Monster Hunter is that new entries don't necessarily make previous titles obsolete, so you can always jump back to them. Generations Ultimate is an amazing game, and Ahtal-Ka could not be a more fitting final boss, with her crazy over-the-top attacks and grandiose design. The gear crafted from Ahtal-Ka looks like relics of an age that might as well be from a long-lost past or a distant future. Her armor does not give skills, but rather enhances the ones that you put in, which is an interesting way of showcasing how versatile and adaptive she is in battle, forging her own unique weapons depending on what she collects. For that reason, her armor is meant to be equipped as a full set. It will add 2 extra points to your skills and double the amount of skill points on your talisman. Her weapons have natural purple sharpness, with good draw and 3 slots to boot. The defense bonus they provide is again tied to the protections that she wraps herself in. They are composed of separate golden sections fused to a violet core. You can see some sort of mystical energy flowing from it. Very pretty. And that's pretty much it. A brief overview on Ahtal-Ka, one of the most memorable ending bosses that the series has seen. And with this, I wish you a lovely day and happy hunting. Peace.